Hey guys, welcome into the Game of Throws weekly recap. This week we are going to be talking preseason along with the recap of our 2021 season. I am your commissioner, Nick, the Boggle one-time champion, runner up last year, and it still hurts, but we'll move on from that. Joining me is Phil, our always competitive but yet champion. And then, how are you feeling about it this year, Phil?
You know, I feel I feel decent. But I felt better last year. And so I don't know yet. You know, I got a couple of question marks on my team that I'm looking to deal this year, that's for sure.
Hey, and it's a long season, and you always never know what's going to happen. And the goal is just make playoffs and see what happens then, right? So,
Absolutely. And I pretty consistently make those playoffs.
yeah.
So
So,
it's okay.
this week on the show, I think we are going to, like I said, recap our 2021 season. And then, along with that, as we transition into 2022 here, we're going to discuss some of the rule changes that we voted on and agreed on for the 2022 season coming up. And then you and I, we're gonna roll through everybody's team in the league and kind of pick them apart a little bit.
Hell yeah.
Maybe give a few compliments here and there, throw a little bit of shade here and there, maybe a little advice, or maybe not. We'll see what.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Uh, so let's roll into the 2021 recap. Uh, it comes very much so to my disheartening to be able to say this, but Ethan is our champion. It was a hard fought battle in the final season, but on the coattails of the late season surge of Rashad Penny and the incredible season of Cooper Kupp, Ethan took home the championship. That would be number two for him in the Game of Throws league history here. Um, so we definitely have to knock him off this year. We can't allow him to come back with a three-peat, a three-time champion. He can't be the first one.
It it's not gonna happen. It won't happen. Um, I'm very envious, but it he'll get it. It won't happen,
It hurts
obviously.
me. It hurts me. The trophy used to be just sitting right back here, and
Mhm.
the day that I boxed it up and shipped it off was a sad day. But uh, I got a few comments about his team, and we'll see kind of how the 2022 season plays out for him.
Absolutely.
Now, in a less prestigious tournament, but not one that has no reward to it, Jordan came out as the winner in the consolation bracket, pulling in as his reward the third pick of this upcoming draft. So he will be taking the 103 as a reward for that victory. I think it bumped him up a couple spots, which definitely, looking at how this draft is going to shake out, could be pretty valuable,
Yeah, I think
I
it will
think.
be.
So that consolation bracket is no joke, and definitely gives reason to always keep competing. So the next thing we got here is some of the rule changes we're working with coming up here in 2022. The big one that I'm excited about, we've been pushing it for a couple years. A lot of people have been wanting a little roster expansion, and this is kind of the compromise of it, right? We get
Yeah.
the introduction of the taxi squad. Sell me
Yeah.
on what is great about the taxi squad.
The taxi squad is good. And if I'm not mistaken, is it just one spot, one taxi squad spot this year?
You know what? I believe it's two, but
Is it two? Okay.
while you're talking through it, I'll confirm.
Okay. Um, so the taxi squad spot is basically um, it's a spot for those young players that y- you can let them sit on basically the bench and let them develop over a couple of years
Right.
and not have to give up valuable spots and on your actual roster. And it's a place for growth for the little the rookies coming in, and
Right.
if you see a path forward for them, uh, keep them on your taxi squad until they hit, and then bump them up to your roster. And it's
Yeah.
it's uh, it's a great. I love the addition.
Yeah, and it looks like we are adding two spots, so it provides definitely a little more value within the 4 round rookie draft that we have coming up here. Players that you're taking in those late rounds, where you don't see it happening necessarily this year, but like you said, there is a path to success. Maybe someone ahead of them is on the way out. You got a veteran in a contract year that you don't think they're going to re-sign, and something's coming up. Toss that player on the taxi squad, and essentially it's like a red shirt year for them, right? So if you're familiar with red shirting in college football, it's you can redshirt for your freshman year, but once you start getting pulled in and start playing some games, that red shirt's gone, and now you are a player on the team, and there's no going back. And that is what we're going to have here with the taxi squad.
And one thing I love about it is it doesn't hinder the waiver wire. Like, those are players that you weren't going to pick up to fill in a week anyway.
Right.
Those were players that were just out there because they're young and they don't have a spot on their own roster. And so it's not going to hinder that kind of week to week waiver wire, which I love.
Yeah, you're still probably going to be able to snag Boston Scott late in the year based on this, and
Yeah.
that is what's nice about it. Uh,
Right.
and the other thing, which brought up a little controversy last year, we had a little mid-season controversy that had to do with some special teams touchdowns and how those were going to be scored. Uh,
Yes.
this came up to my mistake as the commissioner, playing in a couple different leagues. You get different formats, and I didn't realize that in this particular one, we were playing that special teams touchdowns were only counting for, they were counting for both uh, the player and the team, which was my understanding, but was not also everyone's. But we took a vote, solidified that, and said from now on, if you are a special teams player, if you scored the touchdown and you are an offensive player that would be in a lineup in fantasy,
Wide receiver.
right,
Yep.
you get that touchdown, but the defense and special teams also gets awarded that touchdown. So players back there like Hunter Renfro or something like that, who is returning punts, never has scored a touchdown returning punts, but potentially he could if that's still his role this year. It could pull in a few extra points for you, uh, uh, and potentially if they fumble, also that impacts you as well. You can get
Correct. Yes.
negatively affected by those players also. So we did solidify that special teams touchdowns player and special teams will be rewarded the points.
Very good.
Now, the always controversial, not always controversial, I don't think it's just necessarily how do we enforce this tanking enforcement was
Yeah.
voted into effect. And what we said with that was if a player is determined by a 6 of 9 vote, so excluding the player in question, of the 9 other players in the league to be tanking, they will be penalized their latest round draft pick for the next season. Uh, if that continues, and in the next week the league continues to believe that they are still tanking, they will then be penalized the next round. So it can progressively get worse and worse to where you lose a 4th round pick. The next week you lose a 3rd. So I think it's a good move because potentially, really, the only reason you would be tanking is to improve your team. I understand the strategy there, but
Absolutely.
it takes away from the competitive nature of the league, and by doing this, it is actually hindering your future progression because you are losing those picks that you would benefit you in the future.
Right. If I'm not mistaken, didn't the Dolphins have some hot water issues with this same thing?
They did, and I saw that the NFL did come out and say that they could not conclusively say that the Dolphins
That's right.
were tanking,
There was
but
definitely investigation.
a pretty heavy penalty for tampering, which
Yeah,
maybe there was a little side eye there of, hey, we're gonna say we didn't find you tanking, but tampering, we're gonna nail you for this. We know what you were doing. We know what you did. You were tanking. We'll say it was tampering, but we all know.
right. Exactly. So yeah, and I mean the thing to do is just set a lineup, set a valid lineup that makes sense, right?
Right.
You
And
don't
try
need
to, I
to.
mean,
I mean, yeah, just try and make a good lineup
right,
to win that week, and you're gonna be fine.
right. No one's going to be coming after you if you're making waiver wire picks that look like they're good moves for the future. You know,
Yeah,
if you're dropping old man Jarvis Landry to pick up a young wide receiver that, you know, you're down and out, you're not making the playoffs, but this player might be really good next year. That's fine. Like, yeah, it might make your team worse this year, but it's probably better for the future. And that's all good. That's all part of playing Dynasty. But if you are actively setting very poor lineups that everybody can clearly say, what are you doing, man? Then maybe some taking would be called into question. That's why we put it to a vote to see what
right.
everybody
Yeah.
thinks.
Yep. Absolutely.
Now,
Right.
here's
Like if
what.
I'm playing like Melvin Gordon over like Austin Eckler, come on. What are you doing, Phil?
Yeah, unless Javante's out, and then we'll see. You know,
Who
who knows? Uh, this one I'm excited about, and this was by a 9-10 vote. So we pretty much had everyone back in this one. Last place combine punishment. If you finish in last place, at least for this season, the penalty for that will be you will be videoed and recorded to share with the rest of the league, you completing all events that are part of the NFL Combine. You'll be doing that 40-yard dash. We'll see what we can do to get you doing some reps on that bench press. Get your shuttle run going. Taking the Wonderlick. Let's see how football smart you
Ooh,
guys are. Come
I
on.
didn't even think about that.
Yeah, get
That's
that
gonna be
Wonderlick
embarrassing.
going. Oh yeah. So so that'll be a fun one. I feel like it's a fun punishment. No one wants to do it. I don't want to do the combine.
No.
That sounds terrible. But it also isn't incredibly embarrassing and it doesn't like destroy anything. You don't have a
Right.
giant phallic statue in your room or something like that. It's
Right.
fine, you know?
There.
So so that's a fun one. We're bumping the buy-in this year. Everybody was feeling pretty good about that. Bumping it up to $100 this year will be the buy-in. We'll talk payouts. We'll probably keep it similar structure, maybe balance them out a little bit. We always have been pretty top-heavy to first place, which is fine. First place, you're the champion. Get the glory. Maybe with more money, people want to balance it out a little bit more, spread the wealth, but we can all talk about that as the season gets closer. And this one, I'm not giving up, Phil. It's still in there. Kickers are still in the league.
They are still in the league.
They are still here. But you know, I'm proposing it again next year. You guys
Just
all
propose
just
it
be
every year,
thinking
you
this
know.
year when you get a kicker putting up 20 points on you,
Oh
how
my
much you
gosh.
hate that kicker.
It's the worst when you lose a week because a kicker put up 10 field goals. There's no worse feeling than.
It's so bad. But anyway, I guess they're football players too, and they live for another year in the Game of Thrones fantasy league.
That's right.
So, here's another one for you as we're going to jump into some team evaluations. One thing I wanted to do was recap and give you guys perspective on what was the average weekly score for teams in the league last year. So, on an average basis, if you average out everybody's points on a weekly basis, we were scoring 117 points per week. That was the average weekly score, which made sense, right? Like a lot of the time you felt like a win. If you scored like 120, you felt good that you were probably winning. Like that's a solid score, right? So if you were getting above that weekly average, I was feeling pretty good. So keep that in mind. We're going to walk through some stats as we're talking through your teams. 117, that was the weekly average that we were dealing with. All right, so let's jump into it, Phil. Let's
do it.
Let's talk about our league mates. Let's talk about their rosters, how they finished, how their year went, and what does the future look like for them moving forward here. Starting off, we got to kick it off with our defending champ, the Banana Slugs. Ethan finishing at 10-5.
Not a bad year.
Not bad. 10-5, second best record in the league. Came in as the 2 seed and made it rightfully to the championship, taking myself down in the championship in what was a pretty close and pretty high scoring championship game. Some stats we're going to walk through for each team. I'm going to highlight here for Ethan to start with the Banana Slugs. The first one, this is a manager efficiency stat. This is of the maximum total points that had you set the superior best possible lineup for your team each week, your best ball lineup, if you're familiar with those.
Yeah.
If you had set that lineup each week, those maximum possible points, taking your actually scored points over that.
Yes.
So just a simple percentage of how many of your maximum possible scored points did you score. Ethan had the league high, set the best lineups every week given his roster, scoring 89% of his total maximum possible points.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
He a great manager. He knew who to play, and it shows with the trophy.
It does. You can't say anything negative about it. Points per week, 126. So sitting at a good 9.3 positive against that weekly average. So that's how you come out at that 10-5 record and bring home a championship.
Absolutely.
But
now some of those players that led him to the championship.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to talk about Cooper Kupp, obviously.
Kupp, historic season.
Unbelievable.
I mean, let's be honest. Absolutely incredible season, but are we expecting a repeat?
No, I expect to see him in top 5,
Right.
top 3 receiver. He's going to be up there. He's going to be amazing again this year, but you cannot repeat something like that. And if you can, retire. Like that.
Right.
Like
you did it.
Right.
But hey, that's how these fantasy championships are won, on the back of incredible performances like Cooper Kupp's last year.
Right.
And then a couple other top studs on his team, the always electric Tyree Gill, and then the question mark. I think this is a big question mark player. Looking at J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah. I like him for the future and beyond, but this year, I still like him this year, but we'll see. I mean, is he injured right now?
If you ask him, he's not.
Right.
He says he's good to go, but we've yet to see him at training camp. He is coming back from a brutal knee injury, and the team has been making some moves, making signings that makes it seem like they are at least not ready and expecting him or Gus Edwards, one of the two, his
That's
backup
right.
or running mate, at least one of them, not to be ready for the start of the season. So, uh, this is Dynasty. He's still got tons of value. His future certainly looks bright, but based on what we've seen in the past, but um, we'll see for this year. Now, Phil, you got the lineups in front of you. You're probably
Yeah, yeah,
staring.
yeah.
You're staring at this team here. I made a quick look, just looking down this roster, and the things that popped out to me, because I have stared at this roster as I cry myself to sleep, wondering how
Yes,
this
yeah.
roster took me down. Uh, and it's easy to see with those top talents, but my question marks for it moving forward are what's the future here for this team at tight end? You'll have to remind me who it was. But the
Hmm.
big thing that popped out to me was this is a top heavy team. This team is loaded in its starting lineup. Ethan has
Absolutely.
constructed a great team with studs on it, but you get two or three injuries.
It could
What's going to happen?
spell
Could it
catastrophe.
fall apart?
It could fall apart. If Cooper Cup goes down, Kyler Murray, where are we sure that he's going to be? Who knows? It's kind of questionable, but I I I do think he will be in the top half of the league, and I don't foresee a repeat, but
Okay.
it's definitely in the cards. If all of his players can stay healthy, if he makes some moves during the year, there's no reason why he's not up in the playoffs. So now
Uh,
with Tyree Gill going to Miami, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I think it's a step back. Like, we know receivers that change teams generally have a little bit of a step back. They're getting accustomed to their new quarterback in a year. And as much hype as Tyreek is throwing at Tua, um, I'm going to go
No,
ahead
right.
and go with my eye test and say Tua is not Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
And Tyreek, I got to think he's the one, but is he? Or is he the 1A, 1B? Jalen Waddle set the rookie record for receptions. We got to expect more of a breakout in the sophomore year.
Yep.
And he's got a similar skill set.
Right. My gut says Tyreek won, but speaking of Jalen Waddle, I mean, Ethan has Jalen Waddle as well.
Of course,
So
he has
now he's
Jalen
got the
Waddle.
top
Okay.
two receivers from Miami, and that might spell trouble as well.
It's true. You're not always going to want to throw both of them in the starting lineup.
So maybe he wants to, trade one of them. Maybe,
That's
maybe
right.
not.
Ethan, come to me with Jalen Waddle talks. I'm interested. Let's see what we can do. Uh, Any other comments for the banana slugs here?
His tight ends, he's got, Evan Ingram, Austin Hooper, uh, and Dawson Knox, and they're fine.
Right,
None of them are gonna win you weeks, but they're not doing bad on his team, right? He might
right,
want to buy an upgrade, but I think they're fine.
right. Those are all
But
guys with question marks, right? So you
yeah,
got Austin Hooper coming into Austin Hooper might have the most upside of those guys coming into a new team in Tennessee, where there is definitely a giant target hole of AJ Brown being gone and Robert Woods maybe being healthy. We don't know for sure. So is Austin Hooper now the first or second target in that offense? Granted,
right.
it should be a pretty run heavy offense. So maybe Austin Hooper and then, Dawson Knox. What do we
Yeah.
think of OJ? I mean, OJ Howard's there now. It's a question too in Buffalo. What do we? I mean, OJ
Oh,
Howard
that's
could contribute,
right.
and
That's right.
Dan Arnold and Evan Ingram in Jacksonville. Is that a 1A 1B at tight end? So a lot of question marks, Ethan. What are we seeing at tight end? But I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Right.
That tight end is a tricky spot, and unless you got one of the top guys, you're kind of in the same situation as everybody else.
That's right.
Uh, all right, moving on. Sir Davos, that is
Nick,
myself.
that is yourself.
It
Best
was
record.
best record, a moral victory, moral victory. But it just makes the pain so much more.
Yeah.
11-4 last year. I had the most points. I was scoring 129 a week, putting up some big ones. My efficiency, I wasn't always making the right call, down at 83%. So when you're talking total points, sitting at 6% lower than Ethan's efficiency. But on average, I was at about 12 points higher than the league average on a weekly basis. But I got some studs on my team, and I've got some concerns too moving forward. But what do you think? What do you give me a rundown on this roster here? What are you thinking, Phil?
Derrick Henry, he keeps going, right? Is he going to stop?
No one
Probably not.
knows.
I don't know.
No one.
Who knows? But he's still obviously. I feel like he's going to be great this year. Yet again. Aaron Jones is going to be great this year.
Feeling good
Like you
about
said, you got.
Jones.
What's that?
I'm feeling good about Jones. I'm feeling an
Yeah,
upswing this year.
yeah. I think you should feel good. Debo Samuel, you made a trade for Debo,
It was a
and
pricey one.
he. What was that trade again?
Two
What'd you give up?
firsts. Next two
Two
first round
firsts.
picks.
But
Debo.
it's. I mean, he was on fire last year. He was not getting hurt.
Which
Which
was fantastic. I hope that continues.
yeah, and so Devonte Adams going to the Raiders, right?
Right.
Following in the old Jordy Nelson's footsteps.
Old Jordy Nelson
Not as
and
old.
James Jones footsteps.
And James, you're right. Where they go to die.
That's
I
right.
don't think he's going to die, but it's going to obviously fall off.
I think it
Derek
has to
Carr
be
is
a
not
step
Aaron
back.
Rodgers.
Yep.
And then Amari Cooper going to Cleveland. You've had some changes in your roster.
There's a lot of shifts happening here.
There's right, and then Kelsey. I think you're fine there.
I know.
You should be all right. Should be all right there.
And I feel good about it. And I feel good about my roster. My wide receiver depth, I'm a little bit worried. After Adams and Samuel, I get a little bit scared,
Yep.
The rest of them, I got some prospects. I got Tony and Gabe Davis, who hoping one of them hits, and then
That's right.
then I'll feel a little bit better. But the age is starting to be a factor for me. I'm worried about, we got Henry and we got Kelsey, and they're getting up there, and we'll see. But I'm feeling very good about them this year. So I think
this year you're going to make another run. I feel like you're going to do great. It's just when to start. When does it start? When
that's
does the downfall?
When is it?
No.
And I'm hoping not this year. I think I'm still in my window.
I agree.
But always open to trades. Now, next up, this is the team, Phil, that I am most scared of. And I'm generally most scared of it every year.
Every year.
Every year. Who do you think you are? I am Joe. Wonderfully named team. I love this team name. It was such a good poll. And coming in with a 9-6 record, which you'll see as we're going through this. A lot of 9-6 teams last year, but he came out with the most points of any of them, so pulling down that third spot. He had an efficiency rating of 84%, scoring 124.7 points per week, sitting at about 7.5 points per game higher than the league average.
That's
And
right.
boy, does this team have some studs on it.
I can't find a hole.
I've tried.
He's got some good young running backs in Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams. What does Melvin Gordon do in that?
Right.
Is it going to be 50-50? I don't know. Dalvin Cook obviously is a banger.
He's I'd say he's got a couple good years at least still. And who knows with this new offense? Seriously,
yeah,
he's awesome.
Right. And he still has, Edwards-Helaire. So he's pretty good at running back. I would say he's not as stacked as maybe you with Kamara and Henry and Aaron Jones and but it's exceptionally solid.
And
now his wide receivers are always scary. Very, very scary.
Very. So
he's got AJ Brown. He's now made the transition to Philly.
So many team changes. One of the many. AJ Brown going over to Philly, which is probably. I mean, I would think initially on first glance you say, okay, going to Philly, low passing volume offense, not great, but he was coming in as the clear one. And really,
Absolutely.
was it a high volume offense with an incredible quarterback in Tennessee? Not really. So maybe this is a more lateral move than kind of what you normally think on a team change.
Right, and I think the biggest thing to overcome is just a new team.
Right.
Which I think AJ Brown has the talent to overcome that. Obviously.
I agree.
So we got some question marks with like Chris Godwin, Mike Thomas. Is Michael Thomas doing anything?
He's practicing. I believe he is practicing. He's expected from some of the things I checked out on, because I've been taking peeks at him for redraft leagues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're expecting him to be the one, but it's not going to be the same as when Drew Brees was there. Jameis Winston is not Drew Brees, but he also is going to be competing against Chris Olave, who the Saints gave up a lot to acquire in the draft. And also Jarvis Landry, who, let's give Juice some credit. He's still got a little bit of juice, I think, to at least come out of the slot, which is something that Michael Thomas always did really well also. So my gut says he will not come back as the same Michael Thomas, but as a wide receiver 2/3, I think he definitely still has that in him.
Absolutely. And we could go on with his roster. None of these guys are bums, right? So
I'm trying to find one bum.
He's gonna be fine.
Khalil Herbert's if David Montgomery goes down, Khalil Herbert's not a bum. So who knows?
It's very fair.
Yeah.
Those empty bench spots.
Yeah, those are bummy.
Yeah, they're not going to score any points.
No.
But he's going to be right back up in the top, and what can you do?
Yeah, not a lot of draft capital. He's made some draft.
Yes,
he's made some moves to acquire that team that he's got. So only a late second and a late fourth this year. So filling
and
out
with
those
the
bench
squad, it might not be bad for him.
It's true. Loaded up with some projections there.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. Joe's team. I'm scared. I'm scared of Joe's team. But
I agree.
Now we get to move on to handoff Phil You
That's right.
also sitting with the 9-6 record, came in fourth last year. You had an efficiency rating of 85%, scoring 120 points per week, just at 3 points per game above that league average.
Pretty close.
Pretty close, and you'll see that with this league average because a lot of these teams were scoring pretty evenly, especially in the mid to upper scoring area. We had a lot of 9-6 teams doing very similar things. Uh, you have also some bangers on your team here, and maybe none other when we're talking Dynasty holding more value than Mr. Young, incredible Kyle Pitts. The sky is the limit, but
I,
can he get there?
it's he has the best ability to get to that Travis Kelce-esque tier of tight end. He's got the best chance,
He
but you
does.
never really know. You never know. Uh, of course, uh, of course, he's got the talent, and I hope he breaks out this year. But we'll see. That's and at tight end, he's kind of my best. He's kind of my bet. Like I have Mike Gesicki after that.
Hey.
I'm not really fond of that man. He's fine. He's fine.
That's right.
But so
You
I'm
get
hoping for Kyle Pitts.
you get one of those top tight ends, and then the rest of them just kind of disappear from your view. You just
That's right.
pray for
That's
your
right.
guy to stay healthy. So,
That's right. So I'm
but
hoping.
and hey, maybe you'll get some trade offers. You can pull down some good loot with Kyle Pitts, but I got a feeling he's on your roster to stay for a little bit. The price is probably
You know,
pretty high.
it's pretty high. It's pretty high. But we'll see.
No one's untouchable, right? It's always for the
No
right
one's on top.
price. Uh, but you definitely got some great players here. We all know Patrick Mahomes is fantastic. Um, Probably the one or two when you're talking dynasty quarterbacks. Who would you really want besides him or Josh Allen?
Josh
Sitting
Allen, yeah.
sitting pretty there.
Yep.
But then Austin Eckler, and Joe Mixon, your starting running
Th-
back spots. Pretty good. Pretty
those
solid.
I feel good about those two. Um, that's where it ends. Where my good feeling ends. The other ones are question marks. You know,
Yep. Yeah.
Antonio Gibson is great. He's been a running back one for however long he's been in the league.
Right.
2 years.
2 years so far. I want to say two, but
Um, and but he's never been the passing down back. Jody
Jody.
JD
Jody.
McKissick is still there catching passes, and I'm concerned. But he's a good filler, I guess. And then the fall of James Robinson, how I hate that, but I get it. They
Achilles,
don't
right?
have any,
Oof.
you know. Um,
And
and then
then,
Melvin Gordon and Ronald Jones. So I'm not excited about any of my running backs except for those top two, and I'm kind of in that same boat with my receivers. The receiver with the highest ceiling this year for me is probably
yep,
Michael Pittman. Adam Thielen's getting old.
he is, but
I
Thielen has always been solid. And
yeah
I do feel like with this new offense, I feel good about the Vikings offense this year. And I feel like Thielen, we've seen him play in the slot before. I think he has it in him to make some of those transitions into the slot role. Maybe he does uptick some of his receptions and becoming more of a possession guy. That I could see that happening.
hmm
And he's always a red zone threat. So I don't think Thielen is gonna be, you know, a bum this year. And then you've got huge
yeah
upside because Russell Wilson's ready to ride. and you got Jerry Judy sitting here. And this is a guy I really liked and wanted to make some moves to try to get last year. I think we had some discussions about it. You held on to him, and he's got the quarterback now that he needs. It's just, is it him? Is it Sutton? KJ
Right.
Hamler's interesting. We don't think it's going to be, him, but maybe he takes a bigger piece of the pie. So,
Yep.
yeah. So, little
Yeah, I'm
questions.
excited to see how he pans out. I'm decently high, but he's kind of similar, in that I feel like maybe around Adam Thielen range in uh, where he's going to finish, you know.
Right.
Uh,
But
but he does have some upside.
this,
Absolutely.
he, to me, if things hit, like he's a top 10 guy if everything goes right. If
Hmm.
he is the one and Russ is slinging it, Judy could absolutely blow up this year. So basically, what I'm getting out of your team here is so much potential. Even Elijah Moore, he's definitely got some room to grow.
And
Mecole
what do you
Hardman and
think about
Juju,
Juju this
that's
year?
right. Couple
I
of,
can't believe he's only 25 years old.
that's right.
It's insane to me. Um, we've seen that he can't, maybe not can't, but wasn't a wide receiver one. He
Right.
flourished as a wide receiver two. He didn't get it done as a wide receiver one. Let's see what he does with a young Patrick Mahomes, I guess.
And maybe is able to kind of take on that two role a little bit in that offense, even though he's probably the one wide receiver. Kelsey might be the one in the offense, so that might kind of
Absolutely.
help him out a little bit if that is kind of
Absolutely.
his bit. But I think a lot of upside, and the draft can always go your way, adding a little bit of depth.
That's right.
So moving on, our fifth place team, also with a 9-6 record, the fantasy football team. Ben, he was rocking an 88% efficiency rating, right up there
Yeah.
with Ethan. Very efficient, setting some good
It's the
lineups.
second highest, if
Se-
I'm not
Second
mistaken.
highest, yep. And very similar to you, scoring 120 points per game, just 3 points above the league average.
Hmm.
And if I remember right, it was a suspenseful final week of the regular season. You both were coming in
Oh
with
yeah.
that 9-6 record. And if I remember correctly, well, it was about a 10-point differential that squeaked you in, if even.
It was something crazy that it came down to the final 10 minutes of that week. And I'm glad I made it, but his team,
It's
I'm
right
looking at
there.
it right now. He's got some studs on his team. His receivers, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, now a step down maybe with Geno Smith throwing him the ball.
For sure.
But if one of the two, Tyler Lockett and DK, can, you know, get jump balls from Geno, it's DK.
And as much as they want to be a run heavy team, every team has to pass. Like in the
Absolutely.
end, someone a quarterback, they're going to have mid 3,000s to pushing 4,000 passing yards probably by the end of the year. And that's got to go to somebody, right? And
That's right.
why is it not going to be DK?
Right.
Lockett might snag some of that, but DK's the alpha. And when you're a bad quarterback, throw it to the big guy.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And he's got a great stack with Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. T.
Absolutely.
Higgins is not Jamar Chase, but he's extremely good. I think Jamar Chase is that, he's electric player, but T. Higgins, I feel like, is going to have more consistency this year.
Chase is
Maybe not
definitely
as,
he's that physical anomaly. He's like DK. I mean, right?
yeah,
Where it's like this guy, he looks like the alpha. He should be the alpha. He makes the big plays, but we've seen it in the past where teams have two guys who are just incredible and electric, and I think
that's
that's
right.
what T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are. So I think having the two in that offense is not a bad thing. T. Higgins will be good. And you're right, that stack with Burrow is always nice.
Yeah. Now, tell me about his running backs. Let me hear about these. He's got Nick Chubb. Very good.
Nick Chubb,
Solid.
always like him. But not a pass catcher. But not everyone can be, right, and not everyone's going to be. But having those solid, he's getting the first and second down reps. He can bust off big runs, and he's always going to be consistent. Very good with Nick Chubb. The question mark is Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah.
Elijah Mitchell, I remember Ben spending a lot of fab snagging this guy, and it was an incredible call. This
Mm-hmm.
guy was fantastic through all of last year, and as we know, for the 49ers, the back who gets the most touches there is going to be a great fantasy asset. I think it's still going to be Elijah Mitchell. I think they have other guys who are going to contribute,
Mm-hmm.
but that I think is okay. I think Shanahan always has a solid offense. There's going to be scoring opportunities. And as much as the switch to Trey Lance could give him potential to run in some touchdowns, I also think Shanahan might not always want to trust his pretty young, fresh quarterback on the goal line trying to bang it in for those. Give it to Elijah Mitchell, the guy you have faith in that can bang in some touchdowns. I like it,
I
and I
agree.
think he's still going to be good.
I agree. Now he might need to expand that running back roster a bit. Uh, but all in all, a pretty solid team. Now, there's you know, some depth uh, problems, but I think he can address those pretty easily.
I think so
Um,
too. And
I think he's going to do well.
and receiver, you mentioned he did make an interesting trade mid off season here. This is our most recent trade that we had take place. He went and snagged Deontay Johnson from Jordan.
Oh, that's right. I did. I do remember that.
I'm trying to remember what the price was for it. It seemed like a pretty even trade at first glance when I looked at it, but he went and snagged Deontay Johnson, and Deontay had some question marks around it, but he now just got paid.
He just got paid. Yeah.
He just got paid big bucks,
Yeah.
and he's going to be with the team for another couple years. He seems like the best receiver on that team, and I personally am in the camp that Mitchell Trubisky is actually an upgrade from Ben Roethlisberger
An
last
aging
year.
Big Ben, old Ben.
And so while he may not get peppered with the short targets that Roethlisberger was giving him, I think Deontay, we do know, can catch more than just a 5 yard pass, and will potentially have more touchdown and big play upside with Trubisky, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. They signed a 2-year contract, 36 mil, 27 guaranteed. Big boy.
So they're putting
Big boy
money on him.
contract. Yeah.
And then the rest of this roster, I look at it and I say, a lot of question marks. Whoa, hey, here's a guy. I say, whoa, jumping out of me, because it's sitting at the bottom of his lineup here. But he
Oh,
actually
yeah.
is sitting. I'm looking at these two tight ends,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sitting here thinking, if I'm Ben, I'm moving one of these guys
So,
because Dalton Schultz with with James Washington going down in Dallas,
yep.
with Michael Gallup still hurt, with Amari
Yep.
Cooper gone, Dalton Schultz could be the number two for Dak in what should be and always has been a high powered, high scoring offense. Dalton
Right.
Schultz could be great this year. He's playing on a franchise tag, which, while you can say that disgruntles the player, it also means he doesn't have a future with this team. He doesn't have future pay. He
He's
needs to
playing for his.
try to get his future and get some money. So
He's
he's
marketing himself to
exactly.
future. Exactly.
So I am up on Dalton Schultz, and he
Yep.
always has the ever faithful, always productive Darren Waller down there, who
Right.
is fantastic as well. So He's got some really good assets here, and he could make some
Yeah.
moves. I don't think he necessarily has to be done making trades, but it never hurts to sit on these guys either. Their stock could go up, or they, you know, uh,
Right.
could stay where they're at, which is still good, and you can make moves later.
Right. Yeah. I feel good about his team.
All right, and then our random guy out east,
Tanner.
Tanner. 9-6. Like the many other players going 9-6, Tanner always has a solid team. He scored at a pretty low efficiency rating, 81%. So
Make
Tanner's
better choices,
struggling with
Tanner.
those lineup. Yeah,
Make
struggling.
better choice.
Make better choices indeed. 118 points per game, still just sitting 1.5 points above that league average. But let's just come out and say he's got Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah. I mean,
And I came up against Jonathan Taylor in that game last year, scoring 50 points in a week. And there's not many players that can do that. He is horrifying.
yep.
And I think he's going to be electric for a lot of time to come. But give me the
Absolutely.
rundown on the rest of this roster. What are you thinking?
So obviously Jonathan Taylor is the number one back that I would want. Um, we have David Montgomery and Saquon Barkley, solid running backs. Saquon has how he has fallen. I mean, he was,
Flew too close to the sun.
you know, uh, but I still think, he's going to be just fine this year. So his running backs are looking decent here. The wide receiver game is with CD Lamb, that's a strong start. I
Huge
feel like
upside. Huge upside.
huge. Yeah, he could be the number one receiver. He
He
could,
could.
Cordero Patterson out of nowhere again, right?
And we got to look at this, though. He's got him slotted in at wide receiver. He is now a running back this year. Running
Oh,
back
he is
only.
running back only. So okay, so his running back game, it's stronger. I
Stronger.
think
Wide receiver game, not as strong. But
that's right.
Cordero, oh, how it must be frustrating for him in his
Oh
career that
yeah,
at like what 31 someone finally just decided, hey, you're a
let's
great
use you.
football player, let's just let you go out on the field and just do what you do.
That's right.
And he's great at it. Has to be frustrating for him that he had to
Those
wait this
darn
long.
Vikings
uh, and then Tyler Lockett, where are you
again.
at?
Again, with Geno Smith throwing the ball, I I'm down on Tyler Lockett. But Tyler Lockett's a great player. Geno Smith's not going to throw thousands of incompletions, just
Yeah.
several hundred. So
That's right.
some completions have to be made, and I think Tyler Lockett is a fine receiver this year. Maybe in the 3 to 2
Yeah, I would say
range.
somewhere in that wide receiver 3 range. But let me read a few other names off to you. This wide receiver depth is wild to me.
It absolutely is. I'm
Brandon
looking further
Cooks,
down.
DJ Moore,
Yep.
Marquise Hollywood Brown, Brandon
Oh,
Ayuk, Rashad Bateman. I mean,
yeah.
every single
With
one of the guys you can put into a starting lineup. And Van
yeah.
Jefferson, he's hurt. Who knows what happens in LA?
hmm
He's got upside too. Plus, it's a good wide receiver rookie draft here. He could be adding even more wide receiver depth here.
What
So
what I'm seeing is a great recipe for a package trade to you know to bolster his starting
roster,
lineup.
right? Yep.
Um, he's got a lot of good names. So I'm I'm afraid of this team too.
I'm afraid of this team. He's got a guy on his bench, Tyler Huntley, who
Yeah.
God, I wanted to say he was going to be a free agent this year. I thought with the way he played when Lamar was out, that guy was going to be getting a deal. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was a restricted free agent and they tendered him. I can't remember, but that guy seemed fantastic. And that's a guy that I would have my eye on as he comes back up in free agency at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, after Tanner's team, this is where the drop off starts. This is where the 9-6 goes away. We start flipping the script, kicking it with Kareem. Jordan 6-9, flipping it around, going with an 83 efficiency,
Still pretty good.
117 points per week, right at that league average, which makes sense. Pretty close to average record there, and is going to. I think this is a team that has a lot of upward momentum. I think Jordan has always been good. I mean, he took home a title way back
Hmm.
when in the Todd Gurley days. And since then, the team, he's been pretty subject to some injuries and some bad luck with people's careers falling apart and stuff, but always remains competitive, which I respect
Yes,
for sure. Like, always is competitive. And I think now is actually really starting to build a roster that has a very bright future. And that can be built on the back of a couple of very good players in Najee Harris and Mark Andrews.
absolutely. The the Lamar Jackson Mark Andrews stack has gotten him a lot of points. It's
And
won him a lot of weeks.
it's
Um,
scary.
Lamar Jackson is, the best running back that can throw.
That's right.
He's a very good running back, and he can throw the ball.
You can. And the way that roster
So
looks, he might be running even more this year.
right, right. So, um, and with Darnell Mooney coming out last year, it looks like he's the number one now. Allen Robinson is gone,
Yep.
so there's a lot of things to like, and so he's got Jalen Hurts on his roster as well.
Does. He has. I have talked to Jordan about this, and the decision of trying to figure out who you're going to start each week between Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson sounds like a nightmare. And
It does.
it's honestly one of those ones where you get rid of one of them, trade one of
Right,
them for value, so you don't have to make the decision. Uh,
right, yeah,
but it also doesn't hurt to have two incredible players to always put in.
that's right. And he's got Sutton, who
What is he?
now has Russell.
That's right.
Right. Who's it going to be? I lean Sutton a tiny bit, but
I do too, but I think that's
we'll have to
because
we'll have to look. We'll have to find out.
that's the chatter, right? The chatter is, it's kind of leaning towards Sutton, but we'll see when games start actually getting played. Um,
That's right.
so Christian Kirk, he could be the one. He looks good. He got
Yep.
paid money to be the one for Trevor
That's right.
Lawrence, and if Trevor Lawrence can make a leap, he's finally got a good coach with him. Christian Kirk could start providing some more consistent value, and Hunter Renfro. I think will still, despite Devontae Adams coming there, provide a solid baseline. I think he's still going to
Yeah.
get his targets, still going to get his receptions. Uh, and like we said, Mark Andrews at that tight end spot is a great.
Solid.
The final player I want to look at in his team is DeAndre Hopkins, who's sitting down here on the IR. I think this is a team that if DeAndre Hopkins comes off that suspension and can get plugged into that starting lineup, becomes a lot stronger. And like we said, you're just competing to get to the playoffs. And if his players stay healthy, I think this is still a very competitive team and things can break the right way. It's going to be tough. You got to make some moves, but I think it's going to still be a tough team to go up against throughout the year because some of these guys on this team can really boom when things break
Yep.
right.
Absolutely.
Now, the next team we're going to talk about here, our ninth place finisher, is No Egrets. I love
Mm-hmm.
the team name. I don't love the record. 4-11. Cole coming in here with a league low efficiency rating, setting some tough lineups at just 80%, and scoring 104 points a week, 12 points below that league average. Got a absolute ball knocker of a quarterback, Josh Allen, who
Best one.
best one you can have. Bunch of question marks after that. Cam Akers, Deshaun Watson, the I don't even want to get into Deshaun Watson, but uh, you know,
Yeah.
could have some fantasy future
Yep.
when his time comes in the league. But how does this rebuild start? He's got a lot of first round draft picks, but he needs to fill a lot of holes here also.
Yeah. It's going to be a tough rebuild. A couple of definitely going to be a tough season. Um, we got Gus Edwards, who I think is fine, right? I think he can slot him in to a running back, maybe.
Right.
It depends on how it pans out there. But yeah, he's got a lot of picks, and hopefully all of those picks pan out.
Yeah, and I totally agree. These picks are really going to need to hit. He's got a lot of them, so the volume could make that a little bit easier. But I think if the rebuild isn't looking 2 to 3 years into the future, what is really going to need to happen is making some moves with some of those top end players that he has to try to build more of a starting lineup than what he really has here. I mean, he's got some guys that have some upside, but a lot of them are concerning. And making a move with someone like Josh Allen, that top dynasty quarterback, um,
Right.
could go ahead and grab yourself a little bit more value. So, you know, Cole, I think it might be a tough year, but I'm very interested to see where this is going because it seems like you got a
Yeah,
plan. I just can't wait to see how it turns out.
that's right.
And our final team that we're going to talk about this week, finishing in the last place, going to get the 101 this year. Are you ready for some football? Michael, 4-11, uh, and a respectable 4-11 because you didn't let
Yes.
Cole get that number one pick, which I was pretty excited about. And you did have an efficiency of 83%, scoring 102 points per week, 15 points below the average. But Phil,
My goodness.
goodness.
I feel like his points per week are is low, right? But is it due to the injury gods plaguing him? He's I mean, he's got the two best dynasty picks, player position or just positions,
Just
not even
players.
position,
Like
just players.
Justin
He's got Jamar
Jefferson,
Chase. Yep,
Jamar Chase. I
Justin
mean,
Jefferson and Jamar Chase. That's insane. That's great.
it's absolutely wild, and kudos to him for having them. That is a foundation that I would probably not be letting go of. Probably could get some great value for either one of them if you were trying to move them. But
Hmm.
I mean, in a three wide receiver dynasty league, I'm probably sitting on those guys unless I get an absolutely unreal offer. He has the number one pick coming into this year. A lot of people projecting that to be Brees Hall, so could bolster that
Brees
running
Hall, yeah.
back core, but also
And
some
he
good
might need it
receivers. Yeah,
because right, he might need it because Christian McCaffrey has burned him
the
for a
Burns.
few years now. and it sucks. It's when he's on the field, he's the best or one of the best, and he just hasn't been on the field. And if that can stay, and then he picks up a Brees Hall to bolster that position, he's looking actually very good.
I agree. Tight end, he's going to get TJ Hawkinson back, which is very
Hmm.
solid. Uh, and then quarterback Cousins he'll get the job done for you. He's not one
Yeah,
of those upper echelon guys, but definitely not someone um, that you're just going to sell and are super disappointed in having in that starting lineup. And then Allen
hmm,
Robinson sitting back there could help out the receiving core now that he is on the Rams. They seem very excited about him over there, and it seems like
absolutely.
his value should go up quite a bit this year. So, of the last few teams we have talked about, I feel like Michael's team here could definitely make the biggest leap from last year to this year moving forward.
I agree. I think this team right now, when I look at overall his players, I can see him in the playoffs easily.
I 100% agree. I think that this could definitely be a playoff team. When you look at the upside of Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, that says this team could shoot to the moon. So if things break right, this is absolutely a team to be scared of with the potential it has and with what it's going to be adding. That 101 is valuable, but let's not shake our nose at that 201 also. Definitely probably going to get a little bit of value with that also. And with that, we have given the rundown of all of the teams in our league. And thank you so much for joining me, Phil. This was fun. I hope that this is something that we can do going forward. If everybody's enjoying it, we'll continue to talk about the terrible moves that our other managers make throughout the year, all the stupid start sit decisions, and some of those heartbreaking losses and incredible victories that we see throughout the year. Give trade breakdowns on what's happening in the league. And I think it can just be some good fun. So thanks so much for joining me, and hopefully we'll see you again in the future.
Absolutely, it was awesome, and I definitely think we should carry this throughout the season and have some fun with it.
All right, that's a wrap. Game of Thrones League. We will see you for our draft Labor Day. Those in the local area, we will be hopefully getting together at Jordan's residence for those who can get there in person. Everybody else will see you online, and it'll be the kickoff to another great year. We'll talk to you all later. Thanks, guys.